Hey everyone, welcome back to Aioli's Vegan Kitchen. I hope you're doing well. Today we're going to be trying out Gordon Ramsay's vegan bacon recipe that he shared on TikTok a few weeks back. I finally procured all the ingredients. We're going to be making it today. Now I did test the recipe out yesterday. Based on that experience, I do actually have a few recommendations. So if you've ever made rice paper bacon, this is very similar. The only difference is we are adding a layer of crumbled seasoned tofu that it's supposed to kind of mimic the texture of fat in bacon, whether that's a plus or negative to you. If you can find the square rice paper sheets, it makes it easier to cut it into strips, which I have gone ahead and done ahead of time. This is the most time-consuming part of the whole recipe. And then we have some tofu. And when I first read the recipe, I thought there was a typo because it calls for a very small amount of tofu, 85 grams, which is typically for a regular block of extra firm tofu, a fifth of the package or just one serving. Now I am actually cutting the recipe in half because as written, it makes a ton of bacon, okay? So this is half of the required amount of tofu and it's very little, as you can see. After testing it yesterday, it is actually the perfect amount of tofu. So let's go ahead and make our marinade. We have a shallow dish here and we're gonna be adding in liquid smoke, maple syrup, some soy sauce. We also have some melted vegan butter. I'm just using Earth Balance. And the original recipe actually calls for a few tablespoons of sriracha, which even to me, I'm a huge sriracha fan, sounds like way too much for this amount of marinade. The recipe also calls for some cayenne pepper. So those two together are going to make the bacon super spicy. So if you're not a huge fan of spice, just leave it out altogether. It's gonna be fine. And if you do like a little bit of a kick, you can add however much sriracha or cayenne you like. Just give the marinade a taste and adjust it to your preference. Lots of smoked paprika here, a lot of granulated garlic as well, some ground black pepper, and some nutritional yeast. Then the last thing we're gonna be adding to the marinade is a few tablespoons of water just to thin it out, whisking everything together. And we have our marinade ready to go. Next step is going to be to take our tofu, which we have pressed for several hours. He recommends pressing it overnight. And we are crumbling it up into pea-sized bits, is what the recipe says. And now we're going to take some of our marinade, a few tablespoons, and add it to our tofu. And we are also going to be adding in a little extra nutritional yeast. I just ordered this gigantic bag of nutritional yeast. All right, we're gonna mix this just to coat the tofu. We are now ready to do all the layering of the rice paper and the tofu and bake it. So I have our oven preheating to 375, and then to bake our bacon on, the recipe actually recommends to use a wire rack. So this is just like a cookie cooling rack made out of metal. And we have a baking tray lined with parchment, put the rack on there. And this just helps the bacon to crisp up a little more because the hot air is going to be able to circulate around the entire strip of bacon. Now, yesterday I did test a few strips cooked just directly on parchment on the baking tray. If you have one of these, I would recommend using it, but if not, the recipe will still come out fine. The recipe instructs you to take your rice paper strips and then just dip them directly into the marinade until they're coated and they become pliable. My experience with that was that I think it's because there's oil in the marinade. It couldn't really fully penetrate the rice paper. It never became fully soft and pliable the way that it would if you were, making fresh spring rolls or something like that. And so as a result, the two layers of rice paper would not stick together and hold the tofu in. Then when I went to cook it, the strips would kind of peel apart and crisp up separately, which is fine, but it kind of eliminates the purpose of layering two strips in the first place. So my recommendation, just dip each rice paper strip really quickly in some warm water before dipping it into the marinade. Just a quick dip and then into the marinade, and that is going to help it become really nice and moldable so you can get a nice seal between the two layers. So I'm just letting it drip off. We're gonna go onto our baking tray, and I did just very lightly grease the baking rack beforehand. And now we're gonna go in with our crumbled tofu. You really only need a little bit per strip of bacon, even less than a teaspoon really. If you try to put too much, it doesn't really dry up and get crispy in the oven. The marinade smells so good. And we're gonna go in with our top layer. So once again, in the hot water, super quick, into the marinade. Let it drip off. And then we are going to top our crumbled tofu. And then just press down. Try to get a little bit of a seal around the edges between the two sheets of rice paper. And there you go. It's a little bit time consuming to do all of it, but it's not difficult or anything. So I'm just gonna knock these out and then I will check back in with you. Now the bacon goes into your preheated 375-degree oven and you bake it for, in total, 20 to 22 minutes. The recipe recommends that you give it a flip within the first 5 minutes. Okay, we have our vegan bacon out of the oven here. It's had a few minutes to cool off. And when it comes out of the oven, it does seem a little bit soft still. As it sits, it firms up and you can see the ends are nice and golden brown and crispy. So in all, I baked mine for 20 minutes. So let's go ahead and set these guys aside for a second and we are going to make a super epic vegan BLT so that we can taste test the bacon on its own as well as in the context of a sandwich. In the same recipe as the vegan bacon, Gordon Ramsay has a vegan basil aioli. He actually uses just egg. I didn't have any on hand, so I ended up substituting in some aquafaba, just the same volume, and again I cut the recipe in half. I think that if you use the just egg, the aioli might get a little bit thicker, but honestly, it worked fine for my purposes. So if you don't want to go out and buy just egg to use for this, aquafaba totally works. So I just combined the aquafaba with some Dijon mustard, some minced garlic, a couple tablespoons of fresh chopped basil, the juice of half a lemon. Recipe calls for some of the zest of the lemon as well. I'm not a big fan of adding lemon zest to things unless they're desserts, so I skipped that. And then you use an immersion blender, just drizzling in the oil little by little to emulsify it, and then you get this nice, thick, creamy aioli. Season it with salt and pepper to taste. This smells so good. I gave it a taste. Honestly, this might be the star of the entire video. Like, I'm definitely gonna make this again. Okay, we're gonna slice up an avocado as well. I feel like I've been getting a lot of duds lately, so let's hope this is a good one. There's a couple brown spots actually. Gonna give it a slice. Then we've got nice ripe tomato here. Then we already have some fresh lettuce prepared. And then just to go the extra mile, you know, we have buttered and lightly toasted some bread. I think Sprouts actually now sells vegan-friendly brioche if you want to check that out. But I just have regular white bread here. Gonna go in with our aioli. I think we will do tomato first. How much bacon are we gonna go with here? Maybe 2 slices per sandwich? Is that enough? Maybe we'll do an extra. All right. And then lettuce, and then we're good. Then we give it the ceremonial squish. Oh yeah. Can you see that? It looks so good. We have got Eric here to taste test with me.
Have you always been this small?
I hope so.
I feel like you're smaller than usual.
So we're gonna try it first on its own.
I'm hungry.
Think.
I like it.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I do like it. It's not my favorite though.
I mean, the tofu interiors, like bacon doesn't have a squishy innard. You know what I mean? It also the marinade does not taste like bacon, kind of at all.
Really? What does it taste like?
It tastes like paprika and chili powder, and it's very spicy.
There's a ton of paprika in it.
Is there smoke in it?
There's liquid smoke and smoked paprika.
I'm not really getting the smoke flavor.
Oh, really?
I'm overwhelmed by like pepper taste.
Huh. Interesting.
So whether it's the paprika or the chili powder, I can't tell.
It gets super crispy around the edges. I mean, you can hear it. But then on the inside, it's just a little bit... Soggy isn't even the word. It's just like weirdly chewy.
Yeah.
So I feel honestly that if you're a fan of rice paper bacon already, this does not improve it. And if you don't like rice paper bacon, you're not going to like this. Does that make sense?
I mean, it already is really good. It's just not very bacony.
Right.
I'm sure on here it'll be a lot more convincing.
Okay. So let's give the BLT a try.
I'm so hungry. Oh my god. Jeez. Oh.
It's good?
That's really good. It's really good like that.
Does it taste like bacon though?
No. It feels like bacon.
Yeah?
The texture is definitely more bacony in context.
It's not really coming through for me amidst all the other ingredients. I guess I could pile on more. There's 3 strips on here. Let's see, let's stick this one in too.
It's like I'm getting crunch and I'm getting salt.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of the extent of it. I like it though. I think you should, I mean, I don't know how much of a pain the process was, but if you feel so inclined, I would make that with your marinade and see how it comes out. The flavor is good. It's just not bacon.
Mm-hmm.
Gordon Ramsay probably hired some intern to, he's like, make me a bacon recipe now.
I have doubts about Gordon's involvement in both of the vegan recipes. But that's another story. I won't get into that.
The tofu makes a lot more sense in context of a sandwich.
Yeah?
Like, it's weird to bite into the middle of the bacon and get like spongy tofu. It kind of becomes obscured in the sandwich and it's good. I really like it. This is really good too.
The aioli. I think it's my favorite thing.
Would you ever make the bacon again?
You know what? If I'm honest, I don't think I would. I think my favorite bacon, I mean, I'm not really hurting too bad for a bacon replacement, if I'm honest. But probably my favorite, like our go-to is the benevolent bacon, right? Which also, to be fair, isn't a super convincing alternative, but it scratches the itch.
And the
know?
Hooray one.
Oh, the Hooray
stuff's good,
Foods
too.
one. We showed that in a video. It's just kind of hard to find at this point, so hopefully they make it more widely available.
Yeah.
But anyway, this was fun. Thanks for joining me today. Thanks for eating Gordon Ramsay's vegan brainchild.
Yes. Thank you for making me Gordon Ramsay's unpaid intern's bacon.
I'll see you in the next video.
Bye.
I don't know where we're headed, and I don't seem to mind at all. Just keep your eyes looking straight ahead.